Welcome back, everybody, to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys once again to preview the week that is upcoming in the NFL. It is week 8, so almost halfway through the season. That seems kind of strange to say out loud, Dalton. I feel halfway through the season. It doesn't feel like I feel like there's still so many unknowns or high variance from teams that it just saying that out loud it almost doesn't feel real that we're halfway through the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it feels like it's going by so fast. I was thinking about that even on the college show yesterday. I was like, man, we're in week 9 of college football already. We're already in week 8. We're hitting the halfway point of the NFL. And it feels like we've learned a lot, and yet every time we think we know everything, then it gets turned upside down again, right? So, look, we just got to keep learning week to week and see where it goes. But certainly a lot of uncertainty left. And I think it just feels like it's because we don't know who the clear favorite is, right? There's always, by this point, feels like a clear maybe 2 or 3 favorites when it comes to who's going to make a Super Bowl run. But we got a lot of young teams emerging and a lot of ones that we didn't really expect to be struggling that are.
No, it's Kansas City, right? I mean, just Kansas City's going to win the Super Bowl at this point, right? What we've seen over the last 3 weeks, just Kansas City, and the rest of it is just, we're walking through the motions. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding. But the Chiefs do look good, and we'll obviously get to that with them playing on Monday Night Football this upcoming week. What we'll do here on the show is we're going to give you the previews from both sides of the ball that we think matter the most for every single matchup. We're also going to pick a winner, as we do every single week in all of these matchups here. Dalton, you're still up 2 games on me in the season because we went 11-4 last week. We both went 11-4, different games, but we both ended up going 11-4 in our picks. So you still got a 2-game lead on me. I do have 2 games specifically that I am different when it comes to your score prediction that I saw in our show sheet. So I'm excited to get to those. But yeah, I mean, shout out to everybody who's in the chat. I'm looking at it right now. Appreciate you guys getting in the live show early. We'd love to hear your thoughts throughout every single game that we're previewing here on this show. We're going to throw a lot of information out at you, a lot of PFF-specific stuff. So if you guys want to see it for yourself, of course, PFF Plus subscription is the best way to do that. Subscribe at pff.com. That's how you get there. Or you can just go to the website, and there's probably going to be a prompt somewhere for you to click and get a PFF sub. If you use the promo code PFFNFLShow25, PFFNFLShow25, no spaces, so just one word there, you'll get yourself 25% off that PFF sub. So year-long subscription, get yourself 25% off if you don't have one yet. It's a great way to follow along here on the show. Let's start off with Thursday Night Football, as we always do. Of course, as we're previewing every single game, which 3 less games. We got 6 teams on bye weeks this week, so 3 less games. More to dig into with the ones that we got. Vikings at Chargers. That's the Thursday Night Football game. And Dalton, you and I were talking about this actually a couple of days ago. And I think on paper, people might look at this matchup, given what we thought these teams were going to be going into the season, sort of like how we talked about the show. But these teams both have a lot of injuries that they're dealing with, a lot of struggles that they're going through. And I think that will make for a close game. Now, as good of a game as this could have been when we would have predicted it preseason, maybe not, but I do still think this is a close one. You want to start talking about the Chargers or the Vikings here for this game?
I'll take the Chargers defense, actually. It's something I want to focus on here because we focus so much on the struggles in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball. Well, it's kind of happening on the defensive side, too. You can see, you mentioned another injury here to them is Khalil Mack, who hasn't played in a while, right? And it's really suffered for the Chargers. Their pass rush has not been as good as they expected, right? When you look at this pass rush, Tuli Pelotu has 36 pressures this year. Nobody else on the team has 10. So there's just not enough depth there beyond him to get consistent pressure on quarterbacks. You see that, the 3rd worst pass rush grade in the league, 2nd lowest pass rush win rate. And Carson Wentz, look, as he's played respectable as the backup coming in for J.J. McCarthy. He's played good football in spurts. But when you talk about under pressure, he's really struggled. A 35 passing grade under pressure. Played respectable when he is clean, and the Vikings have had some offensive line injuries, still missing Ryan Kelly. They got Donovan Jackson, the rookie left guard, back last week, but the Chargers are going to have to find a way to get consistent pressure on Carson Wentz, and they've struggled to do that lately. So if they can do that, I think it makes a big difference. If you give him too much time, he's got those weapons on the outside that he can really hurt you with, and it's great that the Chargers play such great zone coverage, and they keep that lid on the back end of their defense, and they don't give up a lot of deep shots. But if you give too much time to any opposing quarterback in the NFL, they're going to hurt you. They're going to find the open guy. That's what Wentz has done in clean pockets with Jordan Addison, with Justin Jefferson. If the Chargers can't get pressure in this game, I worry it starts to look like a lot of recent weeks for their defense.
Yeah, and on the other side of things with the Vikings, I think that amongst all the injuries that they have, this team, they're just not running the ball at a super dynamic level. And that's not to say that Jordan Mason hasn't been able to get his yardage. I think that he has. But specifically, I just don't think they're a very dynamic rushing attack. When I was looking this up, because I saw the stat that you put in about Carson Wentz, and it's like, okay, how do you mitigate that a little bit? Well, you got to stay balanced. You got to keep the defense on their heels. You got to be able to run the ball. We know that the Vikings do want to run the ball, but when you look at the last 3 games they have played, and I know they got Donovan Jackson back, like you mentioned, but the last 3 games, now week 6, they had a bye week, so you got to go back 4 weeks technically, but these 3 games, 48.9 run blocking grade as a team over those last 3 games. And Jordan Mason specifically, this is a data point that we like to lean on when we talk about how dynamic running backs are out of the backfield. Just a 0.13 missed tackles forced per attempt average over the course of those 3 games. Now, in them, I believe he's gotten more than 50 rushing yards in each of those games. And so you say, okay, well, not the worst thing in the world when it comes to total output, but being dynamic. Does this team have the ability to be dynamic when they are in the run game? And I'm just not so sure that they are. When the offensive line blocks well, Jordan Mason can make things happen. And obviously he can tote the rock to a point where, he reaches the first defender, and he might get some yards after contact, but that's about it. When they don't run block properly, Mason's not really this force multiplier for you that can really make up for something like that. And just so people kind of have a reference here, when we talk about missed tackles forced per attempt, 0.2 to 0.3, that's a pretty good score. That's kind of what you want. All right, it's a good baseline. We're okay giving you the football. You can be pretty dynamic, and you can make things happen independent of the offensive line. Anything from like a 0.3 to a 0.4, okay, now you're talking about somebody who's really a difference maker, whether the offensive line is blocking well or not. And then anything 0.4 and above, yeah, you're talking about one of the best in the NFL at making guys miss, whether that's after contact or just a juke move that makes them miss in open space. Jordan Mason, once again, 0.13. So he's not even hitting the 0.2 mark over the last 3 games. So it's just kind of a flat, what you see is what you get. The offensive line blocks well, they get some yards. If they don't, they don't. And that to me might be an issue for this game when it comes to being as balanced as they want to be. So ultimately, I do think the Chargers win this game. Amongst all the injuries and the things that they have struggled with, I think the Chargers win because I think that I'm going to trust Justin Herbert, if anything, in this game. I'll go 23-20 as my final score here. What do you got in this one?
I have it similar, 20-17 Chargers, and I'm with you. The most reliable player I think you could argue on this entire field in this game is Justin Herbert, and the fact that he's got Ladd McConkey on the outside. He's got Quentin Johnson. Oronde Gadsden against the Colts this past week had a big game, so I think you're talking about him and those weapons and him dealing with the offensive line that he has. Maybe they get Joe Alt back this week. That would help, obviously, a lot. You're dealing with a team with the highest blitz rate in the league, but Justin Herbert's been getting the football out of his hands. It's been a more conservative offense. They have struggled to run the ball. It's going to be hard for them to run the ball in this game, but I think he can carry them through this one. It's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be really hard fought and a more defensive game than a lot of people might think, considering what we thought about these two teams coming into the season. But I'm with you. I'm trusting Justin Herbert in this one.
Yeah, so both of us have it as a 3-point game. I just have it a little bit more high scoring than you, 23-20. You got 20-17, but we both have the same victor winning by the same margin of victory there. Fast forwarding to the Sunday games, we don't have an international game, so no early game this week. We will have more international games later in the season, but not this week. Giants and the Eagles, they faced off, what was this, 2 weeks ago, right, on Thursday Night Football? And so they get this opponent pretty quickly once again here. The Giants were able to win that game in New York, and that was really when I think a lot of the questions started to, I guess I don't want to say started to come up with the Eagles, but the criticism started to hold weight, right? I think a lot of people look at the Eagles and they're like, they're not what they were last year, but they're still winning, so people still had them in, the top 5, the top 3 of power rankings. And then when that Thursday Night Football game happened, it's like the floodgates were open and everybody was very willing to drop them further down those top 10s. Now you get last week when Hurts was playing very well, especially throwing deep down the field against the Minnesota Vikings that we just talked about. This game's in Philly. You want to talk about the Eagles or the Giants here for this one?
Yeah, I think I kind of just want to recap what Jalen Hurts did last week and what the Eagles offense did this past week against Minnesota to have all that success you're talking about. And we're actually going to have a film breakdown coming out on this channel tomorrow about what the Eagles did right in that game, in their passing game against Minnesota. But the big things that you get are deep completions, 5 deep completions. They're hitting home runs in this offense in this game, at least against Minnesota. Can they keep that momentum going, getting A.J. Brown and getting Devontae Smith going in the passing game? 91.5 passing grade with motion for Jalen Hurts in that game, a season high. What you could tell was the motions that Kevin Patullo was putting in the passing games was just an ability to give Jalen Hurts to pre-snap read the defense, right? Man or zone, right? Just those little tells that you can get pre-snap so he knows what's coming. 42% of their plays, also a season-high run from under center. Add a little more deception, get Saquon Barkley going downhill a little bit in the run game. That combination of things really helps them. Look, they didn't run the ball as efficiently as they wanted to last week still, but I think the idea is there and getting better, and the idea that they're getting a little more creative with getting Brown and Smith those one-on-one matchups, that makes their offense a lot better. And for as many issues as they've had, Trev, you've mentioned it, they're still 5-2, right? And there's still a work in progress. And they did this last year. They started 2-2, and then they got red hot for the rest of the season. If their passing game looks more like it did last week, and obviously deep completions are kind of a high variance thing, right, when it comes to week-to-week predictability, but it's the idea that they're getting their best players going. They're getting in heavier personnel. They're really leaning into what they should be as an offense. I'm curious to see if they keep that momentum going.
Yeah, on the Giants side of things, you and I have talked quite a bit about this, how since Jackson Dart has been inserted into the lineup, they've leaned a lot more towards sort of that rushing offense that they had a lot of success with Brian Daboll there with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley back in, what was that, 2022, 2023? Can't remember one of those years.
22, yeah.
But yeah, it's very similar to that. And specifically, I looked this up. The 3 highest graded rushing games that they have had so far this year, the Giants, have come in the 3 games where they have run the most RPO concepts, right? Where you have both Cam Scattaboo and Jackson Dart as threats to not just run the ball, but I guess keep it in passes as well. Just that multifaceted, okay, who could be rushing it here or there? I think that extra degree of things to think about for the defense is making a big difference for what this team wants to do on the ground. Now, specifically, if you go back to that Thursday Night Football game, Jackson Dart had an 83.5 rushing grade when scrambling, Dalton, and he had 5 scrambles in this game. That first one was for a touchdown, and the rest of them were for really effective. Clearly, that you see in the rushing game there. And surprisingly enough, the Eagles, for as much team speed as they have, and as good as Zach Bond is in the middle of the defense as a linebacker, specifically, this team has a 51.8 defense grade against scrambles, against quarterback scrambling. That's their linebackers do, the Eagles linebackers. And they're 28th in EPA per play allowed when it comes to quarterbacks scrambling. So they're not giving up the most yards or the most touchdowns when it comes to scrambles, but they are seeming to give up those first downs. And they are those situations where they really need to get a stop on the quarterback. They're losing contain. They're not handling it well. I think that Vic Fangio is that type of defensive coordinator who he sees that, he knows that. That's going to be a major point of emphasis in this game. And I do think that the Eagles will get it right here. I still think this is going to be somewhat competitive, but the line being a touchdown at 7.5 as it is right now as we're recording this on a Wednesday, I have it right around that mark. I have the Eagles winning this game 24-17. I don't think it'll be a blowout or anything, but I do think Philly gets back to sort of basics in some of the mistakes that they made containing Jackson Dart and containing the run game that failed them last Thursday or the Thursday before when they faced off against Philadelphia. So I think the Eagles win this one at home.
I agree. I think a big factor is Fangio and that defense seeing the Giants for a second time, especially so soon, right? Last time I've been talking about how the Giants, even in their design run game, have gone to more gap scheme runs and power and pin pull and all those things that have made it a little bit easier for their offensive line to get to the second level. I think you're right about the linebackers. Jahad Campbell, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean is back healthy now. I think you look at those guys in the spotlight going, okay, they're going to learn lessons from the film in the first time, because the Giants were just a half step ahead of them in the run game, especially I thought by design. So I've got the Eagles 28-20. I do think it is that is right about the right spread for me as well. And I think the big thing is the Giants with Jackson Dart in there, they're just a better team than they were the first couple of weeks of the season, right? It's clear the energy is there. Dart, Scattaboo, you can only imagine what they'd look like if they had Malik Neighbors healthy. But I think the fact that the Eagles get to see him a second time, they're at home, and hopefully they've figured out this offense, passing-wise, what they want to do, and that Minnesota game is the start of a trend for them. I think that makes a difference. I think they played much better than they did the first time in this game.
As Walt often says in the chat when we do these shows, make no mistake, Vic Fangio matters. And I actually do think that it will matter a lot, especially with the rematch coming so close to when the first game was. I think the Eagles are going to correct those things and bounce back, although I do think the Giants are certainly going to give it their best shot to keep the Eagles on their toes a little bit, right? They're going to rush the ball with that two-headed rushing attack. Now they got Tyrone Tracy back in the fold as well. And so they're going to give it their best, and I do think they're going to be effective. But it's those chunk plays, those big difference-making plays where you really fail to contain the quarterback in Jackson Dart specifically last time around that I think is going to be fixed this time around. I even wonder if, hey, we know the team speed or the player speed of Andrew Makuba. I wonder if Makuba actually gets involved with being more at the second level to contain Jackson Dart because of how fast he plays and how fast he can close in on the ball carrier. I wonder if we get a little bit of that mixed in. The next game that we have here, Chicago Bears at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens, totally up in the air whether or not Lamar Jackson is going to be back from this one, from that hamstring injury. It looks like Roquan Smith is going to be back. The way that he talked, he's like, hey, the bye week came at a great time. I think we're getting a little bit more healthy. He obviously didn't mention Lamar Jackson, or I didn't see that in any of his quotes, but we'll figure out exactly how that makes a difference if it comes around. But Dalton, on Chicago's side of things, what's the big story for them and their offense?
I mean, for as much as the talk is always around Caleb Williams and his development, the last couple of weeks and as this win streak has extended, it's really the Bears' run game that has carried their offense, and especially the last 2 weeks has gotten a lot better, getting DeAndre Swift going, getting Kyle Monangai going as the second guy behind him, a physical runner, even as an undersized guy. The offensive line the last couple weeks in the run game has played a lot better. Drew Dahlman and those guys in these outside zone schemes that Ben Johnson was sure to bring them in, and it just took some time for this O-line to get in sync, and they've dealt with some injuries as well. But you look at the last couple of weeks against the Commanders, and then last week, I think you talk about an 82.6 rushing grade, really good stuff. DeAndre Swift was one of the best players on the field against the Saints last week. 5.5 yards per carry, 14 explosive runs, Trevor, over the last 2 weeks. No other team has more than 10. This is where it's starting, with Caleb Williams playing a complementary role. I think he's been really good in the play-action game the last couple weeks, and that's what you want to keep going against the Ravens team that has the second worst run defense grade in the NFL this year. They've had a hard time stopping the run between the tackles. It's been a consistent theme. If the Bears can continue to do that, I like their chances a lot to go in and score points on this defense, and then again, get Caleb going in the bootleg game, get him out on the move, cut the field in half for him. You don't need him to be in obvious passing situations as much right now with this run game the way that it's going. If DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai keep running with the success they have the last couple weeks, I like the Bears' chances.
I agree with you as well, right? I mean, for as much as Caleb Williams, I think, has gotten better in some areas this year with Ben Johnson, and I think he is going to improve the balance of this team and really having confidence to hand the ball off or give a short pass to one of your running backs out of the backfield, knowing that they can make things happen for you. That just eases the mind of a quarterback as well. So even beyond, independent of the yards that you gain, the first downs that you gain, that confidence that you gain from being able to have those easy, quote unquote, because it's the NFL, and I don't know really if anything is easy, those easy completions that really help you out, I think, can mean the world for Caleb Williams. So handling that, I think, will be a big deal. That's why Roquan Smith being back for the Ravens, I think, is a big deal here in this one. But specifically, what I wanted to point out here with the Ravens before the bye week that they had last week, they face off against the Los Angeles Rams, and if you'll remember, Dalton, they scored 3 points in that game. Derrick Henry rushed for 122 yards, and they scored 3 points. Now, obviously, that was Cooper Rush and Tyler Huntley were in there, and so you're going back and forth with quarterbacks, and you're trying to figure it out. But if anything, you would look at this and say, well, if Derrick Henry doesn't go off, I don't know what else they have. Derrick Henry did go off. They scored 3 points. Why? Because he couldn't score in the red zone. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens, their last 3 games, they have a red zone touchdown conversion percentage of 28.57, which is 31st in the NFL. The only team that's worse is the Las Vegas Raiders. Sorry, Walt. That, to me, is the biggest difference in this one. And that, to me, is truly like the Lamar Jackson effect here. Lamar doesn't play defense. Like, the defense has got to play better independently. That doesn't matter. But it's when the Ravens actually get in those spots where you can realistically expect them to put 7 on the board instead of 3 that they are not converting since Lamar Jackson has been out. And if the red zone game is not going to get better for this team, Derrick Henry can rush for 150, 200 yards. I think there's still a chance that they might lose these games if they're not converting the way that they need to in the red zone. So that is just that's a major point of obviously the game script getting away from them a little bit, but you've got to be aggressive when you are in the red zone, and you've got to be able to convert. And the Ravens just simply have not been able to do that with any quarterback that has not been named Lamar Jackson over the last couple of weeks. So that, I think, is a big deal in this one. I have the Bears winning this. Now, I made this score prediction with the assumption that Lamar is not going to start a quarterback for them. And if that's going to be the case, I got the Bears 27, I got the Ravens 17. If Lamar starts for them, obviously we're recording this show on a Wednesday, so how healthy he is probably goes into it. But I think even just as a baseline, how he operates the offense, this game gets a little bit closer no matter what. And so I would think that they'll hold on to the ball a little bit more. The time of possession will be there a little bit more. The offense is going to be more balanced, and it can be more dynamic. I think this is much closer to a coin flip type of a game, given how bad the Ravens defense has been throughout this season, even with a somewhat limited Lamar Jackson, if he is just in there. So I don't have an exact prediction if Lamar plays because, again, I don't know exactly how healthy he's going to be. But without Lamar, I'm saying Chicago 27, Ravens 17. What do you got?
I'm going to hedge just in case he does play because it's only Wednesday when we're recording this and we don't necessarily know yet. I've got the Bears also. I've got it 23-20. I think they can still win this game with their run game and the way their offensive line has been working. And even if we get Lamar Jackson in this game, he will not be 100%. And the Bears secondary has been playing better lately, so I'm not quite as worried. It'll certainly be a better passing game for the Ravens if Lamar's in there at all than it would be for Cooper Rush. But I think this Bears offense is rolling right now. They've got the momentum, and it's still kind of a work in progress in the passing game, but I like what Ben Johnson is doing, getting in the foundation of his offense with DeAndre Swift in this run game.
Michael said, I won, but seeing DeAndre Swift go off on my bench was inspiring. It's always inspiring when everybody eats. When you get to look at the lineup, see the win, but see the guys on the bench, they're performing well. The starters get to root them on, It's always feels good. That's how you get momentum into the following weeks, when everybody on the team is eating.
See, I think it's the opposite. I think I want to see the guys on my bench do absolutely nothing, so I know I made the right decisions. That's if my bench didn't score a hope. If I won anyway, then fantastic. I made all the right decisions.
You're just scared of making a decision, is what I heard.
Well, no, I made all the right ones. Is the idea. When you get the clean sweep and everyone on your bench has 2 points and everyone in your starting lineup has 20, then you feel really good about yourself because you go, "Wow, look what I could have screwed up." See that?
No, I want a juggernaut of a team. I want an absolute juggernaut of a team. I don't care who I put in there. I know that whoever I put in there, they're going to answer the call. That's what I want. That's how you got to manage your fantasy football team. Look, I had to start Tom Brady last week, and I believe I got the win. I got to double check on this, but I had to start Tom Brady last week because I just don't have any quarterbacks. All my quarterbacks were hurt. It's a deep league. Wasn't able to pick them up, but I had to start Tom Brady. And you know what? It's for the leadership. And you know what? We got the win. Tom Brady experience.
It's that simple.
Can't teach the hardware.
That's all it takes sometimes.
San Francisco 49ers traveling to Houston to take on the Houston Texans here. Which side of the ball you want to start with? You want to start with the Niners, who are coming off a big Sunday night football win here? Or you want to talk about the Texans coming off a Monday night football loss? Where are we starting here?
I'm going to go with this Texans pass rush with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. It's been the best, most consistent part of their team so far. It's the first thing you worry about when you play this Houston team is how are we going to pass protect and how is our quarterback going to protect himself? And I think it's interesting in the context of is it going to be Brock Purdy or Mac Jones? Because you've got a little bit of two different styles that go on there between those two quarterbacks. Obviously, Purdy's still trying to play through this toe injury, and he's one who's known to get outside the pocket and improvise a little bit. Can he do that against an elite pass rush, a team leading the league in pass rush grade and pass rush win rate, so good off the edge? And you see at the bottom there, they hardly have to blitz because their four-man rush is so good at all times, and that makes it really difficult with a team that can constantly drop 7 into zone coverage and win with those 4 guys up front, especially Anderson and Hunter. Or if it's going to be Mac Jones, then we've talked before this season about the very low average time to throw, his ability to get rid of the football and see things quickly and just get it to the right spot. That would play a big factor in this game too. I think the 49ers would have a chance to win with either quarterback, but for both of them, it's going to be about mitigating this pass rush that has been so good. It's really been the best part of Houston's team this year.
Yeah, on the Texans side of things, we've talked about this a lot, so I don't want to sound too much like a broken record, but Woody Marks has been able to play pretty well for them as the main ball carrier over the last couple of weeks. But then this past week against the Seahawks specifically, I understand it's a late night. You're traveling to Seattle. You're taking on one of the best teams in the NFL. You could struggle, but really it just looked like the beginning of the season Houston Texans that was struggling to get anything going. And unfortunately, it's the run blocking now that's failing them. We talked a lot about the pass blocking for this team that we were worried about going into the season. Specifically last week, 47.8 run blocking grade against the Seattle Seahawks. They were not able to get anything going. And then specifically, Dalton, I don't know if you saw this, 86.7% defeated run blocking percentage for them as a team. That is, oh my gosh. Obviously, it only goes up to 100%. And for 86.7% of the time, they're earning not just a neutral grade, but a negative grade when it comes to run blocking. It's never going to get it done. It's going to be something that's always going to hold your offense back no matter what. And we're just here having the same conversations about the Texans. And unfortunately, I hate to just sound like a parrot or a broken record or an echo chamber or whatever, but until the offensive line gets better, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. And unfortunately for them, they're going up against the San Francisco 49ers team that defended the run as a team, not just up front, as a team very, very well last week. And if we have a similar performance where, I can't remember what Marks's stats were last week. Hold on, let me pull it up. Marks had 10 carries for 15 yards for a 1.5 average per carry number. Like that's, and he had 11 of those yards on one carry. So it just shows you how often he is getting pressure and tacklers either in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage. It's just you're never going to be able to win the way that you need to if your offensive line is blocking like that. And so until the Texans show me some sort of consistency along the offensive line, I cannot take them to win football games. Give me the 49ers here. I will take them 20-14. That's the score that I'm going with. Vegas has this one a lot closer. Vegas has the Texans actually favored in Houston by 1.5. What do you think? Are you going with the 49ers? Or are you going with the Texans?
I'm actually going 49ers also. Kind of a weird score. I think it's going to be a defensive game. 19-16 San Francisco. I think they get out with a road win, and Kyle Shanahan just finds a way to do it. And I do like the idea with George Kittle being back, Luke Farrell blocking well at tight end, Kyle Juszczyk back there at fullback. I like the idea that the Niners can load up the box with extra blockers in the run game and really attack this four-man front that the Texans are always in. If they can get some of those guys at the second level in the run game like they did last week against Atlanta, I think they can have more success there, and Christian McCaffrey could have another big day. He's obviously the engine. He's going to be the big part of it, and I think Kittle's going to get involved a little bit more in the passing game as well. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be really defensive. I think both teams, especially the Niners, are going to want to stay out of obvious passing situations, but their ability to run the football and just control the pace like they did last week against Atlanta is the difference in the game.
Okay, we've got the Browns and the Patriots coming up next, and we got our man Terron Armstead who's going to help us preview the trenches there. Before we get to that, there are some things the school doesn't teach you, right? Like how to handle the financial world, for example, or that you have to plan now for a successful future later. That includes for your kids. Fabric makes that very easy for you to set up an investment account for your child that grows with them and helps prepare them for a great financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With the kids investment account for Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but a UGMA Kids Investment Account allows you to invest on their behalf, gives their investments so much more time to grow. Funds can be used for nearly anything. When they're kids, maybe you're using it for tuitions, books, summer camps, after-school activities, sports. And when they're adults, maybe they can use it for buying a first car, first house, start a business, whatever that looks like. It's all online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes. And you can get started investing with as little as $1 a day and then just manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Cleaning Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, Browns and Patriots. Some people might look at this and be like, oh, It's one of the hottest teams in the NFL, New England Patriots, going up against a team that really struggles to run the football, really move the football at all, and the Cleveland Browns. It's going to be a blowout. I don't know about that. I think Brown's going to have something to say. And we're obviously going to give our previews, but let's hear from Terron Armstead first. He knows offensive line play as good as anybody. And this week, we got Will Campbell, who's playing really well this season, going up against Myles Garrett. So let's hear what Terron had to say about this one. Here we go. Terron Armstead back with us here for another Trench preview. Today we're talking about the New England Patriots and the Cleveland Browns, specifically for rookie offensive tackle Will Campbell going up against Myles Garrett. Now, this is quite the challenge, but Terron, it was only a couple of weeks ago that we were talking about Will Campbell getting another great challenge in Joey Bosa. And in that game specifically, Will Campbell held his own pretty dang good. He had a really high passing grade in that one, and he held Joey Bosa to his second lowest pass rushing grade so far this season. So he was able to handle Joey Bosa well. Now, there was a good game plan around that, but Myles Garrett's a little bit of a different beast here. But I want to ask you overall, thoughts on Will Campbell. First year starting as a rookie, him starting at that left tackle spot being such a big deal for a young and changing offensive line. How do you feel like Will Campbell has handled it so far 7 weeks in?
I'm impressed. I'm impressed, man. He's he looks the part. And you can tell that he's confident in his ability. The Patriots are confident in him too. He's at a level of professionalism that you rarely see from a rookie. Like, you can tell that he's prepared. The sometime bad set, like oversetting somebody that's spiking inside, or just being in the wrong body position, you're not really seeing that from Will Campbell. He looks polished, man, and early in his career. A lot to be excited about. A lot to be excited about him moving forward, getting more reps, more experience. He's only going to get better. He has a really strong anchor, and he's leaning into that as well. So he's getting himself into he's keeping a great relationship between him and the defender. To stay between the defender and the quarterback it's been impressive. He's making guys bull rush him, and he has a very strong anchor to stop power.
And I think a really good relationship with him and whoever the guard is playing next to him, whoever that might be on a week-to-week basis as well. I know they've had some changes along the offensive line there, but specifically, I remember going back and watching a couple of reps from that matchup that he had with Joey Bosa, where you can tell he knows he's got slide protection to his side. So he goes, okay, well, let me make sure that I got my outside shoulder protected, because I know if they hit me with some sort of inside move, I've probably got some help there. So you mentioned just that professionalism, that offensive line IQ, that has totally shown up for him. Now, one of the games, and I would say the game in which he struggled the most, the lowest pass blocking grade that he had, and the game that he gave up the most pressures, was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Specifically, he was facing off against Nick Herbig, who Herbig's had a phenomenal year. I mean, it feels like he is just really playing his best right now, but specifically, he really threatened Will Campbell with a lot of that speed. You know, he was able to beat him to the outside shoulder a couple of times, which gets into the arm length issues, the deficiencies with the lack of length that Will Campbell had. And then when Will sort of started to overset a little bit, Herbig was able to hit him inside. We know that Herbig's able to do it. Myles Garrett certainly is as well. So specifically from Will Campbell's side of things, how would you go about saying, like, hey, let's game plan for Myles Garrett here? Because funny enough, the Steelers specifically, I thought had a great game plan with getting the ball out quick and making sure that there were help and chip protections and slide protections and things like that. How would you go about, you know, if you were Will Campbell, sort of approaching this Myles Garrett assignment here, and then maybe even beyond just Will Campbell, just the Patriots' overall offensive line handling a guy like that?
Yeah, for Will Campbell, you can tell his growth from that Steelers game and how he's been able to respond since. He understands now that you have to take different angles for certain rushers. So if you got guys attacking your edge, trying to win with speed, you have to get to a point of intersection to where you can make that contact come towards you. And he's starting to do that. And he incorporated that against Joey Bosa. Now we're talking Myles Garrett, different story, different beast, different animal. Myles he has incorporated this inside move, like this huge bounding inside move with the arm swipe as he's, making that inside move. He's undefeated on it. Really, like anybody I've seen him go against, he's undefeated on his move. So he has to be conscious about that inside move. I'm sure he'll have slide protection, so he'll be able to take more of an angle to stop Myles from going and turning the edge. and sending them more down the middle, which that plays into Will Campbell's strength as well, with his anchor. So I love how Will has responded to the challenges that he had playing against the Nick Herbert and other guys that present more speed challenges, finding the angle to get to that point of intersection and getting back to playing with your strengths, making guys run down the middle. You can two-hand punch, get your hands refit, and sit down and stop the power.
Last question for you is just talking about defending those inside moves, and whether it's Will Campbell or any other offensive tackle, being able to defend on those inside moves when you are kind of on an island. Let's say you don't have that slide protection next to you. What are some of the characteristics that you think really go into being able to neutralize that against some of the best? You know, is it that a combination of, hey, the light footwork, the balance, the anticipation? Maybe it's all of those things. But in your opinion, what goes into neutralizing a really good inside counter type of move that guys like Myles Garrett have?
It starts with your preparation for sure. Like you see in what way does this guy win inside? Is it a quick hard step and a hand swipe? Is it an inside spin? In what way is this guy winning inside? So I want to know that first. And then ultimately it comes down to your technique. So a lot of tackles, they get in trouble on inside moves when they turn that inside foot. When that inside foot starts to turn towards the defender or even pointed towards the sideline, your hips are closed and it's very hard to respond and redirect back inside. So staying square. We hear that. We've been hearing that for years when it comes to O-line play. Staying square. And that more so is talking to your inside foot. If you keep that inside foot facing north and south, where it's facing towards the end zone, and you can still kick out on that angle, it gives you a much better chance to redirect and have power on contact when facing the inside move.
We know that Will Campbell's going to be excited for it, right? I mean, you talked about how he prepares as a pro. We know that he's going to go into this week saying like, oh, baby, I got Myles Garrett this week. And he is going to be one of the crazy ones who maybe is excited about actually facing Myles Garrett. But preparing for some pass rushers is one thing. Preparing for Myles Garrett is another. I'm excited for this one. Terron, I know you are too. Appreciate you joining us, my friend.
Sir, appreciate you.
All right, that's what Terron Armstead thinks about the game and one of the pivotal matchups that'll go towards who wins between the Browns and the Patriots. Dalton, where do you want to start with your preview of this game?
It's actually right there. It's what I had written down as well, and it's not just Campbell versus Garrett, but that entire Patriots offensive line that has played extremely well this year against the Browns defensive line that's arguably the best in football. You look at Will Campbell and what he's brought at left tackle, Morgan Moses, the veteran presence at right tackle, Garrett Bradbury at center, Jared Wilson, the other rookie playing left guard for most of this year when he's been healthy. This Patriots team is second in the league in pass blocking grade and fourth in pressure rate allowed. Now, most of the sacks that Drake May has taken this year, because there's a decent amount of them, have been because he's holding on to the football trying to make plays, but their offensive line has been mostly outstanding, really, outside of that Pittsburgh game that you guys mentioned there. But the Browns defensive line presents a whole new challenge as well. Second in the league in pass rush grade, third in pass rush win rate. The only reason the pressure rate's a little lower is that opposing quarterbacks know they have to get rid of the football. That's going to be key for Drake May here as well. Get rid of the football in these quick game concepts that Josh McDaniels has in. Take off and run, because you do have the man coverage that the Browns run more than any other team in the league. When those guys' backs are turned, you can take off and run. I think May did a great job scrambling last week, 62 rushing yards against Tennessee. So all of these things that have come together for the Patriots offense, they come up big in this game. When he is protected, those rare moments against the Browns when you can take shots downfield, you do it. But otherwise, get the football out of your hands, and if you get in trouble, take off and run with it. Drake May's a really good athlete. He's been proving it, and he's actually the third highest graded quarterback in the NFL right now under pressure. That's going to be a big asset in this game.
We got a low over-under odds for this game at a 40.5, and I kind of think that it's going to be that type of a game. I really do, because when you look at Drake May over the last 4 weeks, so their 4-win stretch that they have here, he's playing incredibly well. He has 8 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play, one of the highest, if not the highest, passing grade in the NFL since week 4. But he also has one of the highest time to throws. His time to throw average is a 3.19. And so that's showing that he's holding on to the ball a little bit longer to make plays deep downfield, and it's worked for him over the last 4 weeks. But man, you can get pressured quick, and things can close in on you really quick against this Cleveland Browns defensive line. And so I think that he is going to be caught and take more sacks than he has over the last few weeks against this Browns defensive line. But on the offensive side of things, they've got to continue to lean on Quinshon Judkins, right? I mean, week 7 against Miami, 72.2 rushing grade for Quinshon Judkins, 84 total rush yards. Get this, Dalton, negative 11 yards before contact. And yet, Quinshon Judkins had 84 total rushing yards in this game. It just showcases the talent that he is. Independent of the offensive line blocking well, he is able to get his, and he's able to produce. So that is a good thing for the Cleveland Browns. They'll continue to lean on that. I think they need to continue to lean on that. The Patriots, though, over the last 3 weeks specifically, they're top 10 in the NFL, 74.5 run defense grade as a team. They're 6th in EPA per rush allowed in a good way, meaning that they're holding teams from having a high EPA per rush. So it's going to be a slugfest, I think. I am going to still take the Patriots just because I do think that they have more at their disposal to put points on the scoreboard. I was very tempted to take the Browns because I really do think their defensive line is going to eat in this game. But 17-13, New England winning this one. That's the final score that I'm going with here.
Yeah, the Browns are going to drag you into their style of play. It's going to be defensive. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be a fist fight. But we have seen in the past, and look, these other veteran quarterbacks who have beaten the Browns, they've gotten rid of the football quickly. Obviously, Drake May not as experienced as guys like Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff, but I think Josh McDaniels is going to stress that. Get rid of the football. We're going to try to get the run game going, even though that has been a little more inconsistent. And then when you do have time, you have those opportunities to make plays against all the man coverage that the Browns are playing. So I think if you're going to beat New England, you have to threaten them in the secondary. That's not what the Browns do between their pass protection and their wide receivers. The struggles, and obviously the quarterback Dylan Gabriel as well, struggling to push the ball downfield. I like New England 20-13. It's going to be a little bit ugly as it is with all Browns games, but the Patriots are going to get it done.
Your New York Jets traveling to Cincinnati, take on the Cincinnati Bengals. You're going to be in the house for this one, right? You're actually going to this game.
I'm going.
I'm going to see it in person. Where do you want to start here? You want to start talking about the Jets, or you want to talk about the Bengals?
I'll talk about the Bengals defense, which I know a lot of people in this town don't love talking about. There are some things going well, though, at least one. And a group that I think has been pretty impressive, and one player specifically, DJ Turner, their cornerbacks have actually been pretty solid. The Bengals, actually, both of these teams are tied for 26 this year in coverage grade, but the Bengals' issues are a lot more over the middle of the field with all their shuffling at linebacker, and the safeties haven't been great. The cornerbacks as a group have not been that bad. DJ Turner's been the best among them. He's got 6 pass breakups and an interception over the last 3 weeks. As a unit, they're actually 5th among all cornerback units in coverage grade. You've got DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill in the slot has been solid. Josh Newton works in the rotation there as well. 12th in yards per reception allowed, 6th in forced incompletion rate. They get to the football. They got a lot of size and competitiveness in that room, and I think DJ Turner is trying to establish himself as the number one guy here. And you look at a Jets team and their passing game, look, they're 29th in the league in receiving grade, and that's with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall mixed in. Garrett Wilson may not play again. Right now, we have no idea who's playing quarterback for the Jets because it sounded like Justin Fields was going to be on the outs for the starting job. Now Tyrod Taylor's got a knee injury that he's day-to-day with. Who knows if we'll see either of them or if it'll be Brady Cook or somebody else, and if none of them have Garrett Wilson, I don't think it's all that relevant anyway. We saw the Panthers corners this past week shut down these Jets wide receivers. When you talk about Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson and Alan Lazard, these guys just aren't primetime threats in the same way that Garrett Wilson is. So I think, the Bengals corners might have an advantage across the board anyway, even if Wilson does play at less than 100%. But if Wilson is out, this unit actually has a chance to dominate this game.
I am focused solely on how the Bengals defend the run because one, I did not know that Tyrod Taylor was sort of up in the air here. I was thinking that, okay, Tyrod Taylor's going to start and you're going to kind of get that bump because Tyrod's actually going to pass the ball and be willing to pass the ball in ways that Justin Fields just has been gun shy to do so. So with that being the case, I figured that Tyrod's not going to light the world on fire, right? He's not going to throw for over 300 yards, I don't think, but he's going to at least give you something in the pass game to complement the run game because the Jets, a big part of the Jets' problem is the fact that they are one-dimensional as one-dimensional gets. Every single team that they have faced is truly selling out to defend the run because they are not afraid of what Justin Fields is going to be as a passer from a consistency standpoint. And then certainly the more gun-shy he has gotten, they're not even worried about the passing attempts really at all, giving extra attention to the coverage unit. So to me, I felt as though Tyrod Taylor being back out there and at least throwing the ball with a little bit more regularity was going to alleviate some of the stacked boxes and just aggressiveness that they have, that other teams have been able to have against the run. The Bengals specifically, though, over the last 3 weeks, Dalton, on the defensive side of the football, they are 28th in EPA per rush allowed. They are 28th in team rush defense grade. They are 28th in average depth of tackle, and they are 25th at total missed tackles against the run. They have not been good against the run. And if the Jets are able to start Tyrod Taylor, I actually think that they're going to get the bump here. Like, I think that they're going to get the backup quarterback coming in. You get the bump there. There's a little bit of rejuvenation. People are a little bit more fired up. They've got faith in Tyrod Taylor to at least attempt the passes that you need him to attempt in order to win football games. If Tyrod starts in this game, I'm going to go Jets upset. I'm going to say the Jets win this one 20-17. I think it's going to be close. But the way that I look at it as well is, with as much success as the Bengals had last week against press, because the Steelers pressed them a lot, I just can't, in all good conscience, tell you that Joe Flacco is going to have that type of a game again where he's just going to kind of throw it up there and somebody's going to get it. Like Jamar Chase is going to get it. He's going to come down with it. And that's not Jamar Chase slander in any way, shape, or form, but I don't think it's going to look as good as it did last week versus press coverage, the way that it did for the Bengals against the Steelers. And because of that, I think that they're going to be less potent, on offense, less points on the scoreboard. And I really do think that they could struggle to defend the run in a way where the Jets actually get to open the door and do what they want to do in this game. So again, if Tyrod Taylor starts, I'm going to take the Jets in this one. But if Tyrod's not starting in this game, I do think that the Bengals win, just because I can't trust the Jets with Justin Fields at quarterback.
I mean, I don't think I can trust them either way, especially if they don't have Garrett Wilson. I just don't think there's any viable options on the outside. And then you talk about, again, these teams are loading up to stop the run. And last week against Carolina, the Jets, after a while, just chose to stop running the football. They only ran it 15 times the entire game by design. So that's one issue. The other one is on the offensive side, like you mentioned, that press coverage, and the Jets use a lot of man coverage in Aaron Glenn's system, is Sauce Gardner's in concussion protocol, and it's really 50-50 if he's going to play. If he doesn't play against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and you're talking about Brandon Stevens and Azareye'h Thomas against those two on the outside, then the Bengals are at, obviously, a huge advantage, more than they usually are, right? So I like the Bengals in this game. I think Joe Flacco's brought the stability they were looking for, and this Jets team is just embroiled in so much really controversy right now with Woody Johnson's comments and Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor, and who knows who's starting at quarterback now. 24-9, Cincinnati.
The Dolphins are traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. These are two teams who are reeling off of losses that they had in Week 7. You starting with the Dolphins, or you starting with the Falcons here?
I'll start with the Dolphins offensively, and as you've talked about since Tyreek Hill got hurt, there's just a lack of explosiveness. You see this in their passing game. Their passing game is based so much in creating explosive plays, so often with yards after contact. Well, yards after catch. Neither of those things are happening. 27th in yards after catch per completion. 28th in explosive pass rate. You look at what the Falcons are doing defensively with all those zone defenses and Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts at safety and everything they're doing to prevent big plays. They're preventing yards after catch. The Falcons have allowed the fewest yards after catch per completion of any defense in the NFL and the third lowest explosive pass rate. They're really good at tackling. This team's a lot better at attacking the football, both up front with their pass rush and on the back end in coverage. It's why they drafted all those guys who are playmakers on the ball, like Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Xavier Watson. It really plays into their hands that the Dolphins have to win underneath, because they can just rally and make tackles. And now, the guy Darren Waller, who's been the Dolphins' second best receiving threat over the last few weeks, he's out with an injury now as well. So you're really just down to Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane and just about nothing else that's been consistently productive on top of a struggling quarterback in Tua. So look, I think the Dolphins, it's going to be hard to project how they're going to find production in the passing game, barring some miracle from, say, Malik Washington or somebody else other than those two main guys, because the Falcons' pass defense has been so good this year.
When you look at the other side of things for the Falcons on the offensive side of the ball, what needs to happen for this team to win football games is extremely clear. They have to run the football at an explosive level. When you look at the Falcons, their 3 wins this year have come when they have had the 3 most explosive plays on the ground. When they have had 4 or more explosive plays, which we categorize explosive plays as 10 yards or more. When they have had 4 or more of those, they have won the football game. And when they have not hit that number of 4 explosive plays, they have lost the football game. And I think that's just what it is for this Falcons offense. They're very high variance right now, and when the run game is working, it complements everything that can happen in the passing game. And Michael Penix can, whether he's throwing the ball a little or a lot, He could do what he needs to do, and this team has been able to win games. So on that side of the ball, they simply just have to get that explosiveness in the running game. It was something that was lacking from them this past Sunday night against the San Francisco 49ers. They did an excellent job bottling up Bijan Robinson. He only had 40 rushing yards in this game. Tyler Algier did not have much either. And the Dolphins, they've given up 29 explosive runs in the NFL this season. That is the most in the NFL. So this is just a recipe, in my opinion, for the Falcons to play their brand of football the way that they want to play it. And because of that, I think they're going to win this football game. I'm going 28-13 here for the Atlanta Falcons, especially with this one being at home. It's just hard to believe in the Dolphins right now and basically anything that they are doing.
Agreed. I mean, the offense is obviously struggling, starting with Tua at quarterback. And then defensively, I just think the Falcons, Bijan Robinson has a huge opportunity to stack some numbers in this game. And Tyler Algier as well. He's going to get his. I mean, and there is a question right now as to which quarterback is playing for the Falcons because Michael Penix has that bone bruise in his foot. So could be him, could even be Kirk Cousins for the first time this year. But to be honest, I don't really think it matters. This Dolphins team gives up so many rushing yards every week. I think Bijan and Algier both could have big days. I've got the Falcons 31-14. In
a game that, I don't know, a month ago, people would have looked at and thought this is going to be a 3-score blowout. All of a sudden, this could be a football game here. The Buffalo Bills traveling to Carolina to take on the Carolina Panthers. Now, Bryce Young not playing in this game. I mean, like he was at practice in a walking boot. Like I do not think that he is playing in this game. I don't know if that's been like official yet, but I would be shocked if Bryce Young played in this game. So it looks like it's going to be Andy Dalton here, but you want to start with the Panthers, or where do you want to start talking about this one?
Yeah, regardless of which quarterback it is, the Panthers have been running the football really well lately. Their offensive line has been rolling despite some injuries on the interior. I love the way they involve the tight ends, Tommy Tremble, Mitchell Evans, even a receiver like Bryson Tremaine. They're really getting it done with those extra blockers and getting downhill, and they've got another opportunity to succeed in the run game again against a Bills team that ranks in the bottom 5 as a team in run defense grade. The defensive line has been okay. You'll have a lot more success running away from Greg Rousseau, who's their best run defender on the D-line. You run at A.J. Epinesa and Joey Bosa and those guys away from Rousseau. And you look at what the Panthers can do specifically against those edge players. Those guys are big in this game because the Panthers all season have been having a ton of success when they get off tackle, 5th in rushing grade, 3rd in EPA per rush, 3rd in yards per carry. The most explosive runs in the NFL this season, 10 or more yards, when they get off tackle, when they work off of Ike Ekwonu and Taylor Moton, the 2 tackles, and get outside these tight ends. There's so many explosive runs this year that you see from the Panthers that either by design they're getting those pin pole concepts and they're getting on the outside, or they are bouncing runs, even say duo runs that are meant originally to run between the tackles, and the backs are bouncing because you've got these blockers on the exterior of the offensive line, the tackles and the tight ends. You've got those guys really washing things down inside and allowing that space to bounce outside and create big runs in space. So this is something the Bills are going to have to be very concerned with. And their linebackers, when they see these off-tackle runs, they have to get over the top because the Bills, again, their back 7, we've talked about struggling so much in coverage, but they've struggled in run defense too, especially at linebacker. They have not found a way to get consistent production in the run game from their linebackers. Those guys have to be on it because if you let Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard and even Trevor Etienne get to the outside off tackle, whether they're bouncing or it's by design, you're going to have a big problem stopping this Panthers offense.
J47 in the chat saying, yeah, Bryce is day-to-day according to Dave Canales. J47 is also saying that he expects Dalton to play. I also expect Andy Dalton to play in this one. And yeah, you mentioned like how much better the offensive line is right now than it looked to start the season. It's looking much more like the top 10 unit that they were last year, especially with them being willing to lean into more heavy personnel stuff. I'll sort of talk about what I think that this means towards this game, but really, I just kind of found an interesting stat here, or I won't say that I found it because, to be honest with you, this sparked my curiosity because I was reading an article from Sean Murphy, who writes for Buffalo Rumblings, the SB Nation site there. And the article was all about how the Buffalo Bills are inconsistent on offense, but specifically the scripted drives that they have. The first drive to open the first half and the first drive to open the second half, right? We talk about that all the time. Hey, the first drive, it's very scripted, or the first 15 plays are scripted. They work on that throughout the week. This is exactly what we're going to do. This is what we think the other team is going to do. In those opening drives, the Bills are fantastic Bills on scripted drives. So again, these are the first two drives. This is the first drive of the first half and the first drive of the second half. 0.488 EPA per play. That is first in the NFL by a lot when you were looking at other teams stacking up their scripted drives. 85.1 overall offensive grade on the scripted drives. That is third in the NFL. On the non-scripted drives, so I basically, the way that I categorize this, because I took the information that Sean had was more about touchdown conversion and points conversion on those opening drives. I took that point of view and went to our database, and I was looking at overall offensive grade and overall EPA per play. So it's a little bit different than what Sean had, but please go read Sean's article because it's fantastic and what laid the groundwork for me to do my own research in our database. When you look at the non-scripted drives from the Buffalo Bills, 75.4 offensive grade. That's sixth in the NFL. Okay, still good, obviously. But then when you look at the EPA per play specifically, negative 0.052, that's 21st in the NFL. So all of a sudden, you go from being number one in the NFL on those scripted drives by a lot to 21st in the NFL in those non-scripted drives. Specifically, over the last two games for the Buffalo Bills, because that is really what matters. You look at the Bills and how soft their schedule was to start the season. You've had the Falcons and the Patriots over the last 2 weeks. So over the last 2 weeks on scripted drives, 81.1 overall offensive grade, 0.396 EPA per play. So both of those numbers still very, very strong, even against the good teams. But on the other side of things, the non-scripted drives, 64.3 overall offensive grade, which remember, it was at 74.5 against the bad teams on the non-scripted drive. So we're a full 10 points lower here. And then negative 0.268 EPA per play. That is much worse than what it was even in the non-scripted drives on the whole season with those bad teams sort of included in that sample size. So I think that our data really backs up what Sean was saying in that there is a major difference for the Buffalo Bills on the offensive side of the football for when things are scripted for Joe Brady versus when they are not. And something very, very interesting that I sort of found when looking up those numbers. The biggest discrepancy in categorical grades, which we have overall offensive grade, we have passing, rushing, receiving, pass blocking, and run blocking. The biggest difference in team grade when I was going through all of that for scripted versus non-scripted actually came in the receiving grade. I was like, okay, well, let me do a little bit more research here. When I looked at who the Bills were in those opening drives, those scripted drives, they got the tight ends a lot more involved. Dalton Kincaid, when he has been out there, Dawson Knox running the running backs out of the backfield as well as a receiver. Khalil Shakir was pretty consistent in that regard, but it was very much leaning on positions that weren't just wide receivers. And specifically, Keon Coleman has only had 2 targets this season on those opening scripted drives. 2 targets for 14 yards. And when you look at just the last 2 weeks against these 2 good teams, 1 target, 1 catch, 6 yards. But then when you go to the non-scripted drives, Keon Coleman leads the team in targets. He is their number 1 guy that they are going towards. And the tight end passing game specifically takes a big time dip in terms of threat percentage and how often they are getting it involved. So I'm not trying to say that like this is totally a Keon Coleman isn't good stat. Like that's not what I'm trying to say here. But they are much more diverse in where the football is going on those scripted drives than they are on the non-scripted, because it feels like they go to Keon Coleman much, much, much higher. And obviously there's a lot more drives than just the first 2, but the rate in which he is targeted versus the diversity that they have in those scripted drives, that was really what stood out to me. So I don't know exactly how that's going to play out. I found that information this morning, so I wasn't able to go back and like watch all of Keon Coleman's targets, and so I haven't gotten to the film quite yet, but those numbers were very, very interesting to me. And in this matchup specifically, I wonder if Buffalo sees that and just gets more diversity in the offense of where they are distributing the football throughout the entire game, instead of that just being an emphasis on those first drives of the first and second half. So again, I don't know specifically how much it will go into this matchup, but this is an overall philosophy thing for the Bills for everybody to just keep an eye on, and I'm certainly going to keep an eye on moving forward of how much they are getting everybody else involved throughout the rest of the game, rather than just going, okay, let's just throw it to Keon Coleman now, because that feels like it's just a major difference in how often they're willing to do that with those successful drives versus unsuccessful drives. I am still going to take the Bills in this one. I do still think they bounce back. I'm going to go Bills 28, Panthers 24, but I do think this is a close one. What do you think, Dalton?
I think every bit of that is a great call that you just mentioned, because the Bills' offense has operated at its best, I think, this year when it's been in 12 personnel, 13 personnel, right? Those tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jackson Hawes has been a big part of that. They've been able to run the football and have balance and use play action, and I also think it speaks to their weakness, where on offense, their weakest position unit is wide receiver. They do not have a number one wide receiver. They would love for Keon Coleman to become that guy at some point as the first-round pick, but he hasn't become that a year and a half in. I like Khalil Shakir. A lot of times they kind of limit him to after-the-catch opportunities and don't use him vertically down the field. Josh Palmer, a couple of solid targets a game, but he's not a guy to take it over, right? Elijah Moore and guys like that getting snaps. This Bills team, when they have 3 or 4, even 4 wide receivers on the field, they're just not as good because it's not a loaded receiving core. I do think that can be a problem at times for this offense, but you make a great point about the tight ends. I would lean more into the tight ends, especially in this game, with sometimes the Panthers having issues covering over the middle of the field, especially their linebackers. I do think this is going to be a competitive game. I think the Panthers' physicality plays up. I do think their run defense is better, and that's going to be a big factor early in the game as well. Can they slow down James Cook to the same extent they've stopped the last few teams running the football? I think they've done a nice job of that lately, and that's really been an X factor in their success. I'm going to take the Bills. I think Josh Allen just kind of gets them through this one. I think you've got a competitive game, and the Panthers, this game really to me is going to come down to who gets ahead first, who gets the score first, and who gets out ahead, and which team has to abandon their running game sooner. I'll take the Bills 27-23. I think this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, and just one final point on kind of what I was talking about there with Keon Coleman. It does feel like, to what you mentioned, they want him to be this wide receiver one for them. And from what I read during the preseason and training camp, he was playing like a wide receiver one. But so I saw someone sarcastically say this on Twitter, but it might kind of be true. Like, he was playing as a wide receiver one in training camp in the preseason. He might have just been going up against a Bills secondary that we now know is not good. So now they're playing other teams and they're saying, okay, Keon, be that wide receiver one that we saw you be during the summer. And he's just not as effective as he was going up against a Bills secondary, and a cornerback group that we've seen so far this season is really struggling. So I think these are very interesting things to keep an eye on moving forward with the Buffalo Bills. But all that to say, get the tight ends more involved. Be a little bit more diverse. Come on, let's get some more guys in there, because I think that's when the Buffalo Bills are truly at their best. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming off a Monday Night Football loss against the Detroit Lions, taking on the New Orleans Saints. This one's in New Orleans. Dalton, I know you got thoughts here on how the Saints have played at home versus on the road this season. They are at home in this one, so talk to me about the Saints offense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what necessarily to glean from this split that I found here on Spencer Rattler, and just I don't know if it's a preparation thing, if it's a comfort thing in the Superdome, if he just likes playing indoors or what. But when you look at Spencer Rattler and his performance split between his home games and his road games this year, when playing in the Superdome, Trev, he's got an 89 PFF grade with 9 big-time throws and 3 turnover-worthy plays, basically playing like one of the elite quarterbacks in football in the Superdome. And when he goes out on the road, it's quite the opposite. 51.7 grade there, 2 big-time throws, 12 turnover-worthy plays. Was it 6 of them that he had last week against the Bears in Chicago? So, look, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's comfort, preparation, just a better decision-making with the football, maybe not dealing with the crowd noise out there on the road. When he's been in the Superdome, he's been really good, and you've seen that from the Saints in the games that they've played in that building. They've looked really good. Even if they haven't won all these games, they've looked really good in the Superdome. The defense has been solid, keeping them in games. Maybe they haven't been able to finish off games all 60 minutes with wins, but this team, if Spencer Rattler plays like that in New Orleans, they're dangerous. They are a threat. I mean, they don't have a boatload of talent all across their team, but when you have a quarterback playing to that level that you saw in the top half of that graphic, they're certainly a threat, especially to a Bucs team that at times has struggled in coverage, right? So I just think it's something noteworthy and just an odd split. We don't do a whole lot of home and away splits here because it's not necessarily a strategic thing or X's and O's or even generally coming down to correlating to future success, but it is something I think to note through the Saints' first 7 games is that Rattler looks a lot lot better, and their offense looks a lot better when they're playing in the Superdome, and the Bucs need to take that seriously because they have played well in most of the games that they've played in.
For the Bucs, I mean, it's very simple. Baker Mayfield just has to play better, right? I mean, you go back to that Lions game and you say like, oh, what did the Lions necessarily do against Baker Mayfield looked like he shotgunned a Celsius before the game. 2 Celsiuses maybe Stone Cold Steve Austin, those things. He looked like he was so amped up for this football game in a bad way, where the ball was just sailing on these wide receivers and everything was 100 miles an hour. And I get it was a big game. You got to make these big throws happen. But he was 28 for 50 versus the Detroit Lions, just a 59.6 adjusted completion percentage in this game. And then we have some more advanced sort of accuracy numbers here. 40.5 accuracy percentage on his throws. That's his lowest of any game this season. And he had a 33.3% uncatchable inaccurate target pass percentage, which was the highest of any game that he has had so far this year. So simply put, Mayfield was not the MVP candidate version of himself that we have seen throughout this season. And I figured that it was going to come down a little bit for Mayfield because that's sort of who he has always been during his time at Texas Tech, when he was at Oklahoma, when he was with Cleveland, even in Tampa, as he's had success over the last couple of weeks. He has always been a little bit of this live by the sword, die by the sword, and you've got to be okay with some of these performances where he just kind of goes off the rails and it's not working for him because there's so much magic when it does work. But last week was just simply a game where it wasn't working for him. He was way too amped up. He was not as accurate as he needed to be. And they simply just were not going to win the game with him playing like that. I think that this is going to be a pretty tight game between these two teams. The Bucs offensive line obviously has to play well. It doesn't seem like we're going to get Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin back because it's a little bit shorter of a week with them playing on Monday Night Football going into Sunday. I wonder if we get those two guys next week. But, we're recording this show and it's early on a Wednesday. So things could change there. I still think Tampa's the better team. I think it's going to be close. But I'm going to say the Bucs win this one 23-17 in New Orleans.
And a big factor in that loss Monday night was the fact that Mayfield was under pressure 52% of the time. You just don't win very many games when your quarterback's under pressure half the time. So I think that's going to be a factor the other way when it comes to the Saints and their lack of pass rush. And the Bucs, even with Bucky Irving out, they should have an ability to run the football on this very vulnerable Saints run defense. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think Rattler can bounce back from a poor performance in Chicago last week. He's been really good at home. I'm going to take the Bucs as well, but it's going to be a dogfight 27-24.
Drake in the chat is saying that he thinks Baker's, I'll read the full message from him just to give the context. He says Baker's a limited quarterback, but he could win a Super Bowl with a defense like the 2013 Seahawks or the 2015 Broncos or the 2024 Eagles. I don't know if I wouldn't call Baker Mayfield a limited quarterback. I'd call him a high variance quarterback still. That's probably the way that I would put it, is like when Baker is on, he can be the reason why you go on a big winning streak, independent of the defense that you might have on the other side of the football. But then you also get games like the ones against the Lions that we saw on Monday night. And you correctly mentioned like how much he was under pressure, how much the Bucs were having to try to mitigate what the Lions were throwing at him. Like there were a lot of factors involved, but Mayfield was a reason why they were not able to get double-digit points in this game, because he just was not as effective as he needed to be. And so you hope that it's a little bit of a bounce back, because then if it is, you'll get a pretty good game with how New Orleans has been able to play in the Superdome so far this season. All right, we got a couple games left. We're previewing here in Week 8, but everybody out there in chat, love to hear from you. What's your favorite touchdown of all time? Love to hear it. I asked Dalton what his favorite touchdown of all time was. He pulled out the Tracy Porter interception that we had in the Super Bowl. It's a good one. Of course, for me. Like I said on Monday, it's the next one, right? The next touchdown is always the best touchdown, because with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, every touchdown could bring you closer to cashing in. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NFL right to your fingertips. From first touchdown scores, anytime TD props, or the thrill of live in-game betting. Every snap is loaded with opportunity. Here's the best part. New customers bet just $5 and your bet win. And if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets instantly. We're using DraftKings for all the odds that we see this year. You know, the over-unders, the spreads, everything you guys see on the screen. That is, of course, courtesy of our friends over at DraftKings. Your team hitting pay dirt, that pays out to you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code PFF. It's promo code PFF for new customers to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you've got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or just text HOPE-NY 467-369. And in Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bets must win to receive the bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, visit dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer here. Cowboys in Denver take on the Denver Broncos. Broncos coming off a thrilling victory. Cowboys coming off a decisive victory in Week 7. You want to talk about the Cowboys or the Broncos here?
We'll go with the Cowboys. And when you talk about the Cowboys, you have to talk about Dak Prescott, right? And I think the biggest challenge this week is working around this Broncos pass rush. That's one of the best in the NFL. They lead the league in sacks. Nick Bonito's been great. Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, all the guys that they have up front that can put heat on you, right? And I think the coverage unit for Denver hasn't been quite as good as we expected this year, but this defensive line has been outstanding. That leads us to Dak Prescott, who's been the best passer in the NFL under pressure this year. I think that's going to be a huge factor. 82.7 passing grade under pressure this season. Best in the NFL. Second in yards per attempt. Highest completion percentage. Most big-time throws. This has been a huge difference. And a Cowboy team that, to be honest, their offensive line, they've struggled in pass protection. They've had a lot of injuries, and they rank 29th in the league in pass blocking grade, and you're dealing with a really good Denver defensive line, again, that leads the league in sacks. Dak Prescott's ability to stay calm under pressure, make the reads like the veteran he is, and obviously you've got CeeDee Lamb back, came back and had a big game last week. George Pickens has been on fire. Jake Ferguson, you've got all these weapons to work with, and of course, maybe it's the Javonte Williams revenge game, but I think the biggest factor in this game in big moments is going to be when that defensive line wins the battle up front. Can Dak Prescott continue his hot play under pressure and expose this secondary that hasn't been quite as good this year as we thought it would be?
So when I look at this game, I look at what the Broncos can do on the ground, because they were able to really get it going as an offensive line this past week, but really they had not been before what we saw this past weekend. Broncos run blocking grade against the Giants, what we saw in Week 7, 82.0. That was their highest single game run blocking grade so far this season, specifically in zone blocking concepts. 88.4 team run blocking grade from inside zone, which, obviously can look a little bit like power because you're going between the tackles, but 88.4 inside zone and then 88.6 outside zone. So these zone blocking concepts, the offensive line all moving in unison in one direction, whether it's a short distance or a long distance towards the sideline, was working very, very well from the Broncos. And it just feels as though the rushing attack isn't quite what it could be with the offensive line in theory, the way that we think that the Broncos can run block the way that they have throughout this season, but specifically what they have been able to do in the past. The Cowboys run defense, 36.8 rush defense grade this season. That is dead last in the NFL, similar to the dead last that they were in 2024. Negative 0.010 EPA per rush. That's 27th allowed. When facing zone blocking concepts, they have that 44.0 run defense grade. And then when facing man and gap scheme or power scheme run blocking concepts, it's a 37.2. So they're actually better at defending the run when it comes to those zone rushing concepts. But I wonder if we'll continue to see the Broncos just leaning into that a little bit more. But until the Cowboys can stop the run, it's just going to be shootout after shootout after shootout. And just for fun, I saw your score prediction before I wrote mine down here in the sheet. You have the Cowboys winning this game by 1 point, 28-27. And just to have some fun here on the show, I'm going to say the Broncos beat the Cowboys 28-27. So I'm going to have the exact same score, one point difference, because I think that this game could be all over the place. It's kind of one of these things where I feel as though the Broncos could absolutely dominate the time of possession in this game. But when you got Dak Prescott on the other side, maybe that doesn't matter because they can light up the scoreboard. So I think this is a total coin flip type of a game. I'll take the Broncos, and then you're going to take the Cowboys here.
I'm with you. I'm on the other side of the coin there. I have it 28-27 written down with the Cowboys pulling out a win. I don't love the way the Broncos have started games lately. It's really taken them a full 3 quarters to figure out what they want to do on offense the last couple weeks, and Dallas knows exactly what they want to be on offense. Another side story here I want to focus on is the Broncos and their league-leading pass blocking grade. That offensive line has been so good in pass protection really for the last year and a half, and which of these edge rushers can somebody up front step up once again? They've had some veteran guys like Jadeveon Clowney and James Houston step up in situational roles. Can the Cowboys, I should say, find pressure on Bo Nix and make him make bad decisions late in plays? Can they get maybe an interior pressure going against the backup left guard, Calvin Throckmorton? I think the Dallas defensive line, if they can step up in this game against a really good pass blocking unit, I think they could make life a little more difficult for Bo Nix and not just give them the two-way go they've been given so many opposing offenses. But I'm going to take Prescott to pull out a tough road win. But I think this is one of the hardest games to pick of the week.
By the way, I just looked this up. I thought they were less effective with their running backs out of the backfield this year, but the Broncos still have the 7th most rushing yards from just their running backs. I thought that Bo Nix kind of would have helped in his, what he can add on the ground, and I felt like I really haven't seen a lot from the Broncos running back room, but 7th most in the NFL. Okay, that's better than I thought. So I think that kind of goes into my script of them being able to control the game to the point where you're keeping Prescott on the sideline, and then it comes down to, hey, can that secondary that the Broncos have, are they able to cover the Cowboys' offensive weapons at least better than what we saw last week with the Commanders, which I know we'll talk about the Commanders a little bit more as the Monday Night Football team here in a second. By the way, we had some responses in the chat to what I was asking with what the favorite touchdown of all time was. Hold on. We've got... the first one. Donald in the chat saying of all time, probably the beast mode run. I always watch that one when it's played. Beast mode and I are both Lakeland, California natives, so there's a lot of love there. Shout out, Lakeland, California. And then we had another one. Which one was? Cyrus said the Demaryius Thomas one from Tebow in Pittsburgh. That's a famous one. That's fantastic. And then Casey said the Peyton Manning fake against Dallas for the TD run where he actually keeps the ball on a boot, where he just walks into the end zone because nobody thought the Peyton was going to keep that one. Those are some good shout outs there for a favorite touchdown of all time. Tennessee Titans, they're traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Indianapolis Colts. In many people's eyes, the best team in the NFL. Certainly from a lot of metrics, you can see that being the case. Titans coming off a loss to the New England Patriots with Mike McCoy in his first game as the interim head coach now that Brian Callahan is gone. You want to talk about the Titans or the Colts here, Dalton?
I'll go with the Colts defense here. And look, Trev, of course a lot of people have that. They're calling it the perfect season. It's not hard to figure out.
They can't call it the perfect season anymore.
They're still doing it. Yet it's stuck. They're still doing it. Look, I think over the past few weeks, something that's gotten it was kind of interesting to me watching this team is that Lou Anarumo has actually laid off the gas a little bit when it comes to blitzing in the pass rush. He's kind of just trusted his 4 guys up front to get a pass rush going because they need help in coverage. They've been struggling at cornerback. They've had some injuries back there. And I think it's really paying off in the sense of it working and getting pressure with just 4 up front. Over the last 4 weeks, the Colts are 6th in the NFL in pass rush grade and 3rd in pressure rate. And I think their star players are really coming out to play now. And one guy who's at least becoming a star player, Trevor, it looks like Latu's coming, man. I know the last year and a half we've talked so much about Jared Verse, and he's been edge 1 from last year's class, and he was defensive rookie of the year, and he was so great. But Latu's coming, man. 24 pressures since week 4, 3rd most among all edge defenders in that span. Then you look on the inside and the interior push they're getting with DeForest Buckner, 23 pressures over their last 4 games, most among any defensive tackle in that span. I think the Colts finding a pass rush, and we've even had some of our commenters there in the chat talking about, okay, they need a little more pass rush help. But if you have Latu and Buckner playing like stars, and then you're getting contributions from a guy like Kwity Paye or Samson Ebukam as complementary players, you can really help out your guys in coverage back there who are struggling at corner and all the zone defenses Lou Anarumo is using on a weekly basis. I think it's helping a lot, and especially against this Tennessee team that for most of the year has struggled to pass protect. The emergence of Latu now in his second season after early season injury kept him out a game or two, and then comes back in and just gets red hot over the last month or so. And then DeForest Buckner, just the consummate professional, the consummate veteran there on the inside, getting it done every single year. I think this Colts pass rush is becoming something at least to think about for opposing offenses going, okay, we got to get rid of the football because these four up front, they're getting after it.
You love to see Latu standing out. You knew it was only a matter of time before Edge One got to the top of the NFL when it came to guys that you could fear along the edge. So that's no surprise over here. I mean, what more are we supposed to say about this game other than the fact that there is absolutely nothing on paper that would tell you that the Tennessee Titans are going to not only win, but keep it close in this game. If they do, Cam Ward probably takes over, and he probably has the best game that we have seen so far from him in his NFL career. But the Indianapolis Colts, they have the third best EPA per play in the first quarter. They have the ninth best points per first quarter average. And if the Colts are able to do exactly what they want to do, where they're moving the ball at will in the first quarter, they're putting up points on the scoreboard, and now they're putting the Titans in a spot where Cam Ward will have to pass. They can no longer be balanced. I mean, I don't know what to point to here other than Cam Ward taking over of why the Titans would be close in this game. The Colts also, I looked this up, 33.7% of their offensive plays, their passing plays come with play action. The Tennessee Titans have given up the second most passing yards allowed to any sort of play action plays. What the Colts want to do goes so perfectly into where the Titans have not been good this year that I think this game is a blowout. Indianapolis Colts 31, Tennessee Titans 10. This is, Dalton, I don't know if you've seen this. This is a 2-touchdown spread. The Colts are favored by 14 points in this game. That is crazy to think that the Indianapolis Colts, going back to what we thought, even the best version of what we thought the Colts could be this season, to be 14 points favored against any team in the NFL is wild, but it kind of shows how successful the Colts have been and how bad the Tennessee Titans are.
Yeah, and injuries are mounting for the Titans too. L'Jarius Sneed is going to be out this week and probably longer, and it's possible that Jeffrey Simmons doesn't play in this game either. And if he doesn't play, then you could get a real big day from Jonathan Taylor again, who's already leading the league in rushing. I'm with you. I think the Colts at home, especially in the way their offense is rolling, they have to be heavily favored here. I think they cover it as well. I've got it 34-13. I just don't see a whole lot of answers. The Titans played well for about a quarter last week on offense against New England, and then it sputtered again, and there was turnover issues and pass protection issues. I think that's going to show up again. The Colts pass rush is hot. If you can't threaten their secondary in a timely fashion, you're not going to score a ton of points on them. Their defense is getting better each week. And like you mentioned, this offense just has everything right now. It's rolling as hot as you possibly can. I think the Colts are winning big.
By the way, before we get to the next one, Donald is correcting him and me by saying he had a typo. It's not Lakeland, California. It's Oakland, California. And in my head, as I was reading that out loud, I was like, I thought Marshawn Lynch was from Oakland, but I was like, every state in the United States has like a Lakeland. So I wondered if Lakeland was like, like a sub town of where Oakland was, and that's actually where he was born. But he says that he's from Oakland or spent most of his time with the high school in Oakland or whatever. So that's funny. That's my bad. I probably should have known that. But shout out to Donald, who is also from Oakland, California, the same as Marshawn Lynch, where he was shouting out his favorite touchdown there, which is the Beastquake that we saw in the playoffs. Okay, the Packers and the Steelers, that's Sunday Night Football that we have this week. Packers traveling to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. Steelers, very different on offense lately than what they were to start the season. Dalton, talk to me about the Steelers offense, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Packers on their side of things.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Aaron Rodgers is playing against the Green Bay Packers for the first time in his career, so the spotlight, regardless of how he came into this game playing, was going to be on him. But his last 3 games, he's playing pretty darn well. He got off to a slow start early in the year, wasn't throwing the ball downfield very well, but that's changed in the past couple weeks. You've seen him getting rid of the football in his usual timely fashion and attacking downfield downfield more often. His last 3 games, 81.7 passing grades, 7 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays, and a 1.5 yard higher average depth of target than his first 3 games where he was really struggling. He's gotten hot. It certainly was not his fault that they lost to the Bengals this past Thursday. Just got into a shootout, and Joe Flacco was one or two plays better than he was and ended up having the ball last. So I think when you look at this Steelers team in the passing game, they've still been struggling to find a consistent running game. It showed flashes, especially with Jalen Warren. The offensive tackle situation still isn't great, but Aaron Rodgers has gotten into a rhythm over the past couple weeks, and he's doing it at the right time. And I'll tell you, he's going to have to get rid of the football quickly again like he always does, because Micah Parsons against these offensive tackles might be unstoppable again this week.
On the Packers side of things, this game, the game script for what we think is going to happen in this game is going to be very interesting because, yeah, you talked about it there. The Steelers' offensive line has been really struggling throughout the season, at least at certain points. Broderick Jones has been struggling specifically. They're going to be able to stick Micah Parsons wherever he is most advantageous. And I feel as though it's going to be one of those games where Aaron Rodgers is going to have to get the ball out of his hand pretty quickly. And with that being the case, I just don't know if he's going to have the continued success that he has when that's been the case over the last 3 weeks. Instead, I feel as though this is going to be one of the lower offensive output games. And along with Aaron Rodgers playing better, you saw Jalen Warren play better. I feel like the Packers are going to be able to defend the run a little bit better against the Steelers. I just overall like the Packers front against the Steelers offensive line when it comes to the rushing attack and how quickly they can put pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I just don't know how potent they're going to be on offense with that being the case. But then on the other side of things, the Steelers defensive line is just as, if not more, ferocious than the Green Bay Packers is. And then when you look at, okay, what's Jordan Love been like under pressure? Well, he hasn't been good this season. 44.0 passing grade under pressure. That's 26th. He's got no touchdowns. He's got 1 interception when he's under pressure. He's got 3 big-time throws, but he also has 3 turnover-worthy plays. He also hasn't been under pressure a ton. 74 total snaps that he has been under pressure. That's 20th most in the NFL. And so it's sort of one of these situations where I don't know what version of Jordan Love under pressure we're going to get. And this Steelers defensive line has shown us throughout this season they are one of the best cohesive units at getting after the quarterback. And if they're able to do that, it's kind of a coin flip of whether or not Jordan Love is going to give you the big-time throw that makes all the difference in the world or the turnover-worthy play that could be backbreaking. Instead, on the other side of things, I think this has got to be a big Josh Jacobs day. Like, I think that Josh Jacobs really has to allow them to stay balanced, really got to keep the Steelers' pass rushers on their heels a little bit, not give them as much of a green light. So, to me, the X factor in this one, obviously Jordan Love, because he touches the ball every single play, his play is going to matter the most, but how much they can rely on Josh Jacobs to march them down the field, I think is going to be huge in this game. I almost took the Steelers in this one, but thinking about how quickly Micah Parsons might be able to just single-handedly destroy plays against Broderick Jones or whoever's going to struggle against the Steelers offensive line, I am still going to take the Packers in this one. I'm going to take the Packers winning on the road 23-17. That's the score I'm going with.
Yeah, this game's going to get weird just because of the circumstances and everything surrounding it with Rodgers playing against Green Bay. I'm with you, though. I think you said the best point there. You saved it for last with Josh Jacobs. Yeah, the Steelers' run defense has been very inconsistent this year. It was not good at all against Cincinnati last Thursday. If the Packers can keep themselves in good down and distance situations and not just let that Steelers pass rush pin their ears back, they're at a huge advantage in this game, especially with some of the Steelers' struggles at cornerback as well and how many options that the Packers have to throw the football on the outside. I do think the Steelers absolutely have a chance if they can get the Packers on offense behind the chains. And then I think it's got to be a heavy DK Metcalf day against the Packers cornerbacks if they're going to win. He's been getting a heavy target share lately. It's been really good for the most part lately. I'm going to take the Packers by a field goal. I'm with you. I think Josh Jacobs and the ability for the Packers at times to control the pace of the game instead of getting in this shootout where the Steelers pass rush is teeing off on them, that makes a big difference. One team can run the ball at a solid clip with an elite running back. The other, it's been a lot more inconsistent running and stopping the run.
The Commanders and the Chiefs, that's Monday Night Football. We have now been told that Jaden Daniels will not start in this game, will not play in this game. due to that hamstring injury. But Marcus Mariota, he has been one of the better backups in the NFL. He's been able to operate this offense pretty well when Jaden Daniels has not been in there. Obviously, it didn't go well for them last week with him throwing that pick six there, but he has been playing well as a relief quarterback when Jaden has not been in there. Unfortunately, they're not just playing any team, and they're not just like, oh, well, like we could see what Marcus could give us here. They're playing what feels like an unstoppable force right now with the Kansas City Chiefs. So do you want to talk about the Chiefs side of things or the Commanders side of things?
I'll go on the Chiefs defense. And look, Mariota, and it sounds like he might have both Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel back for this game, which helps a lot and really diversifies things in the passing game, especially McLaurin as a vertical threat. But what Mariota, what he's going to have to throw into with this Chiefs secondary, they're still outstanding. This is still the best part of this defense. Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Shamari Connor, on the back, these guys on the back end, Brian Cook on the back end has been really good. They've just have so many guys that get it done. This is just isolating their cornerbacks and safeties, okay? You just take the secondary. Chiefs are first in coverage grade, the third in yards per reception allowed, fourth best explosive pass rate allowed. And that last part I want to mention too, the opponent's average depth of target, just the fifth lowest in the NFL. You talk about the Chiefs and their ability to just prevent teams from taking those shots downfield and making you win underneath 5, 6, 7 yards at a time in the passing game, and really just not giving up those home runs, those big chunk plays in the passing game. That's where it really comes into play, especially with Terry McLaurin as the vertical threat. He's the guy who takes the top off the defense, but if the Chiefs can prevent that, you feel like it can be another really good day in their secondary. Washington has really just struggled to find consistency, especially over the top in the passing game. That could be true again with Mariota playing one more game. And you're right, he has been good in most of his appearances. Not so great last week against Dallas, but well behind in that game. It was going to be a struggle because they weren't running the ball the way they wanted to. The Commanders are going to have to play probably a conservative style of ball in this game, running the football because they always want to do that. But can they make any plays over the top? Can Terry McLaurin make that difference over the top? Because the Chiefs are as good as anybody at preventing those explosive plays with their secondary. Trent McDuffie and those guys have been outstanding again this year.
Yeah, when you look at last week's game against the Dallas Cowboys, the two leading rushers for Washington was both of their quarterbacks. And so as much as you want the quarterback to be a part of the rushing game, I don't think that's a recipe for them to really win. And I don't think that that'll be a recipe for them to win against Kansas City either, especially with this one being in Arrowhead. So it's hard for me to pick against the Chiefs right now. It really is. When you look at the last 4 weeks specifically, the Chiefs, fourth in the NFL in EPA per play. Last week, they were fifth in the NFL in EPA per play. 27.3 first downs per game over the last 3 games is the most in the NFL. That's the highest average of first downs. So they are not just scoring a lot, but they're controlling the ball a ton. Patrick Mahomes is on the field a bunch, and that's to their advantage, right? They feel best when the ball is in his hands. And so that time of possession on their side of things, they feel pretty good about it. And I feel as though they're just on a roll right now, and it's hard for me to look at this Commanders team that has struggled so much in coverage, like you highlighted, and think that they're going to be able to slow down the hottest team in the NFL with a guy who's, when he is on in Patrick Mahomes, I mean, it's just there's nobody stopping him. He's just been one of the best in the world at what he does. I think the Chiefs win this game 33-21. I've got them winning by double digits here. I don't see anything. The Commanders may keep it closer because it's a shootout, but ultimately I don't have faith in the way that they're playing defense in their secondary to compete with now a much more healthy and fully operational passing attack that the Chiefs have here. So I'm going Kansas City in this one.
Yeah, the Commanders' run defense is much more functional with Bobby Wagner in the middle of it. So honestly, I think if you're the Chiefs and you're looking at this team and the way they've played in the secondary, like you mentioned, I wouldn't be shocked if they come out and let it rip early. I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball the first 8, 10, 12 plays. I really think they could try to come out fast, maybe even get some tempo going and just attack with all of the different weapons that they have. They have so many different guys they can go to. Rice, Worthy, Smith-Schuster, Brown, Kelsey, Gray, Brashard Smith getting involved now, Pacheco. I mean, there's just so many different options that I would not be shocked at all if they come out just hitting the gas right from the beginning and just going, you know what, let's put this team away. Let's put the pressure on them right now. We can come out and dominate the secondary with all these weapons. I think you get another big day from Rashee Rice because he was outstanding last week, and the Chiefs win this one pretty handily. I have it 30-13.
It's just hard. It's hard to see the unless it's a shootout. Like unless the final score is like 38-35 or something. I just don't know that the Commanders are going to have a recipe to beat the Chiefs the way that they are playing or the way that they are playing right now. There we go. Every game in Week 8 previewed for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. However you guys are watching it. If you liked what you heard from the stats perspective, you want to see these grades and all these stats for yourself. Go to subscribe.pff.com, PFF NFL Show 25. That's the best way to get 25% off that PFF Plus subscription. That's it for us. Well, that's not it for us on this channel this week, right? Because you got a breakdown coming. What's the breakdown on?
Jalen Hurts and what made him so successful against Minnesota this week.
There we go. I'm sure the Eagles fans will absolutely love that one because they love when Hurts is able to showcase his ability to push it deep down the field to those fantastic receivers. So be on the lookout for that. Dalton's going to break down Jalen Hurts' performance. But from a live show perspective, the next time that you will see us will be Monday for 1 p.m. Eastern time, as we will review every single game that will have happened to that point, which is all of them but one, with no Monday night doubleheader. So however you guys are watching this weekend, enjoy it. For Dalton Wasserman, for everybody producing the show, I'm Trevor Sikkema, saying thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys on Monday.